Hi, welcome to Art of Semi-Fiction. I am Jane Daly.
And I am Robynne Miller.
Today we are going to ask the very burning question, can I write both fiction and nonfiction?
Yes. Thank you for joining it. I'm just kidding.
The end.
The end. Sorry, punchy today.
Yeah, a little punchy.
A little punchy.
So a lot of times we as writers have heard from agents and editors that we need to stick to one genre. We need to stick to one really pretty much.
Yeah. Just to pick a lane,
and stay in it.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk today about whether that is absolute gospel truth. So,
or hooey.
Or not, maybe not hooey.
I'm going to say hooey.
That's a little strong.
Can't Christian people say that word?
Hooey. You can say hooey, but I'm going to say it may not be hooey. It may just be a good idea for most people. We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
All right. So let's look at some authors, first of all, who have successfully navigated both lanes, both fiction and nonfiction. There is an author named Jocelyn Green, and she has written 8 historical fiction novels, including Wedded to War, Widow of Gettysburg, and my favorite, The Mark of the King. So she's very much writes historical fiction. But she has also published traditionally 8 nonfiction books, including 2 she co-authored. So the question is, how does she do it? How does she do it?
I know somebody else who has done it.
Who?
Cynthia Ruchti, my agent.
Well, tell me about how did she do it?
Oh, I'm just telling you she did it.
But you don't know how.
Well, I do know how. I mean, because she's written devotionals, nonfiction and fiction, and just the same thing we've got going there. Jocelyn Green. Yeah, and I think it all comes down to excellent writing.
And that's a very good point. But secondly, she also has an agent who doesn't pigeonhole her into one
crucial.
or the other.
Yeah, that's a crucial point. That is a crucial.
I'm not saying that everyone who writes necessarily will want to write both fiction and nonfiction, but some of us, myself included, who have traditionally published nonfiction, my passion is to write stories, to write fiction.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten anything published yet, but I also have an agent who believes that you can write both. Yeah. But many agents don't want you to write both. They want you to stay with one.
And to be fair, this is not just saying that agents are like weird, inflexible
they're
people.
Not evil.
No, the reason is because publishers invest in you in building your platform. And Jane has been published successfully nonfiction books, multiple, more than one. And when you invest in building your platform as a nonfiction or as a fiction writer, there's been a certain amount of effort that's been put into that. And it's very difficult to then say, now we switch into a different vein. So it's not that they're being mean or inflexible. It's just that they know you're a harder sell to a publisher if you have an expertise and a following and a platform in one genre, but you want to write in another one. So until your name is ridiculously, whatever you write, I will read kind of a thing. And there are people like, James Patterson and Francine Rivers could do it. Max Lucado could do it. If names that write those big things.
Max Lucado has done it.
Yeah. But there's a point at which you can, because your name is the brand and they know that you're, what you write or the quality you write or whatever.
No matter what you write is going to get published.
Yeah. Because you've established yourself in the level of quality. But when you're first starting out, you have to remember that people are investing money and time and effort.
Yeah, it's a business. And so your agent knows that he or she may not be able to market you, as Robynne said. But in Jocelyn's instance, she's represented by Tim Beals, who is the founder of Credo Communications, who happens to be he's not my agent, but that's my agency. Yeah. And he believes that what she writes is good and gives her the freedom to write both fiction and nonfiction. And that is something that I like about Credo, is they're not one of the agencies who said you have to pick a lane.
Yeah. And that's a great, if you are like Jane, who has a passion and you have something to say nonfiction wise and you have a passion for stories, you want to look into that if you're choosing an agent or an agency, because it's kind of hard to be told that it's like, I like tacos, but I don't want tacos every night, And so it's important that you find somebody who's going to not only tolerate it, but encourage and embrace and support
as
it.
part of your long-term career.
Yeah.
Which is important. I think we talked about how to choose an agent and the importance of interviewing. Yes, it's great to get an agent, but it's more important to get the right agent.
Yeah.
It's kind of like marriage.
Exactly.
It's great to get married.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be married to the wrong person.
Yeah, exactly.
So the agent is the same thing. You want someone who's going to be with you for the long haul and
totally supportive of everything you do. It's very much like a marriage, as a matter of fact, isn't it? You want them to believe in you. You want them to not stifle you. You want support and set you free. And it is just like a marriage. I'm married to my agent. I didn't know that.
It is like a marriage.
I'm going to have to give Cynthia a ring next time
like
I see
a
her.
call or like an actual ring.
Maybe,
because that could be a little weird.
Could be a little awkward. She'd probably take it and laugh, though, as long as it was pretty. All right.
Okay, so another familiar name is James Scott Bell.
Yes.
So Mr. Bell has his courtroom novels have really placed him in a supreme position in a really overcrowded genre. I mean, look at how many people write courtroom dramas.
Yeah.
Because you've got the John Grisham and you've got Scott Pratt, who's not an author who's a Christian, but he writes courtroom novels. And it's quite a crowded genre.
And he set himself apart.
He has set himself apart. Yeah. But look at how he's also written lots of craft books. Mm-hmm. How to write your novel from the middle, which I highly recommend. He's written How to Make a Living as a Writer. So and I'm reading The Art of War for Writers, which is just little tiny chapters that are just little snippets of excellent stuff. He's a great writer on craft, so I highly recommend him. Yes. But think about this. I cruised through his website and realized he's also written several nonfiction books. So not only does he write courtroom dramas, as well as a lot of other fiction, he writes writing-related books, and then he also has written nonfiction, including Some People Are Dead. He is
that
great.
Sounds so like Jim. Sounds like something, right?
He definitely knows how to title a book. He's great at titling. So he is someone who has been able to cross into that different lane of the freeway. And again, the question is, how did he do it? Excellent writing.
Yeah.
He was able to establish himself, first of all, as a great writer, then as a teacher at writers' conferences, and then started writing books, and now is really an acclaimed teacher on writing.
That, just so you know, not everybody wants to or even can do that. But if you can and want to, there are plenty of people who've already broken that mold to go ahead of you. Mm-hmm. And the key word there is excellence in all you do. If you write an excellent book, content is king. Mm-hmm. It really is. It's over platform. It's over everything else that surrounds the writing of a book. It's the content. And if you've got great content and a passion for it, and again, if you're forced to write something, you're not going to be the best salesperson for it. Mm-hmm. So when somebody is told that they need to write something outside their wheelhouse, they're not going to give it their best. But if you're passionate about it, that's part of your platform. Mm-hmm. Part of your platform is your enthusiasm. So if you are wanting to be writing, like, nobody's forcing you to write fiction. You love it. You love the process. You love the result. You love everything about it.
Creating the story and the characters and the plot.
Exactly. So even though you had success and awards and stuff with your nonfiction, you're not going to be going, my fiction, whatever. You're passionate about it. So that's the kind of person we're talking about too. We're not talking about people who are saying, whose agent is saying, you must write this, a book on poetry or haiku it'll be good for your career, and you have no interest in it. We're talking about the people who really, really want to, whatever message God's given them in whatever genre, to be able to go forth and do that. And do it well.
So the simple answer is, can I write both fiction and nonfiction? The simple answer is yes, you can, but should you? And so for the beginning writer, what does that mean? And I believe that it means that the beginning writer should pick a lane, so to speak, and stay in it, because you need to master your craft. You need to know what it is that you're writing. Your big, what is your overarching theme of your writing? And there's many ways to discover this. You have an exercise that you went through in your MFA to discover what you're
passionate about, what you're really writing about.
Yeah, what are you really writing about? What is everything you write, whether it's fiction or nonfiction?
Yeah.
So the beginning writer, I would say, needs to stay with a lane.
I think that's fair enough. It's kind of like if you have an Olympian who is great at shot put, but isn't at the top of shot put yet, you want them to perfect that before they start picking up a javelin.
Right.
Kind of a thing. So that's a great point.
So the advanced writer, the one who, even intermediate to advanced writer who's proven themselves, I believe that they can cross over into not only a different genre, but also the whole different, because I wouldn't say fiction and nonfiction are necessarily genres. What do you call them?
Well, they're general, very, very topical genres.
Yeah. So you've got fiction, nonfiction,
and then
like creative nonfiction, and then like instructional nonfiction.
Yeah. Prescriptive nonfiction is this is how you do something.
Right. This is like
step 1, step 2, step 3.
Like James Scott Bell and his writing books on writing is first you do this and then you do this.
Yeah, it's prescriptive. So there's nonfiction and fiction are the overarching genres, but in the broadest of terms. And then in fiction, of course, you've got romance and speculative and
women's fiction,
and
YA.
Oh yeah, and all of it, steampunk and all that falls under the genre of fiction. But they're all their own specific genres within fiction. Same thing with nonfiction.
Right. Which for the beginning writer, you want to be able to establish yourself as, so if I write women's fiction, that's really what I should be writing for the next, I would say, 5 books.
Yeah.
Then I've already established myself as a writer.
Yeah.
I could write a YA book because I have a YA book that I've written part of that I'm dying to write, but I don't want to muddy the water, so to speak. I really want to get established as I am a women's fiction writer.
Yeah.
So that would be a way that an agent would say, no, you need to stick to a lane. You need to stay writing the same thing for a while. Yeah. Then you can switch.
Exactly. I mean, and there are very few exceptions to that. And for most people, those exceptions won't apply. One exception might be that there is something specifically related, really, like if I was established having written articles about fostering and adopting from the foster care system and was kind of had built a large platform in that arena. And then I wrote a fictional book about a family who adopted some hard to place kids. That would be a tie-in. Yeah, that would be a tie-in because that would be of interest to the audience that I've already established. It's only when you switch to an audience that is completely, almost no overlap between your two audiences that there's a problem. And unless you've established yourself well in one area, then
it's a huge risk. And you need to think about, if you're going to want to be a long-term writer, you want to have a career, whether you publish one book a year or you publish one book every 3 years, you want to, it's too much of a risk if you decide, you know what, I'm going to write this one book on women's fiction, and now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to write a children's storybook, and then maybe I'll write a book of poems. There's a huge risk of you really watering down your message, really watering down your platform. It's just, for me, it's not worth the risk.
And it becomes kind of one of those jack of all trades, master of none kind of things. If you've been to a restaurant and they have one dish from every country in the world kind of a thing, it's kind of novelty, but you're like, do you really specialize? I want to go to a Mexican restaurant for really good Mexican food. I want to go to a Vietnamese restaurant for really good Vietnamese. When you do try to do too many things, the almost default thing is that you're really not a master of anything. So there's a psychological component that you're risking, very, very, very risking. I want to know that somebody really is an expert in
An
it,
expert. Mhm.
in one thing. Now, there are people that have established themselves so well that it's not in jeopardy anymore.
Mhm.
So they've written all, James Patterson with all the novels that he wrote and all the YA stuff, and then when he writes nonfiction, nobody's gonna say, oh well, all of a sudden you're not successful as a fiction writer. He's already established
Right.
that. So
and this is a mistake
yeah.
I see that a lot of beginning writers make, is they haven't decided really what their lane is.
Yeah.
To use cliches that we're not supposed to use from a previous
Unpack
podcast.
that for us.
Yes, I will unpack. What does that mean? I think too many beginning writers think, well, yeah, I can write anything because what I write is for everybody.
Yeah.
And you can't. So
Yeah.
if you're going to be writing historical fiction, stick with historical fiction. Don't switch to Amish and then write another on women's fiction and then back to historical. They're not going to associate your name with a particular genre or with a particular area of writing.
Yeah.
Now, people like Francine Rivers, who writes beautiful historical fiction, biblical historical fiction, writes the masterpiece, which is set in modern times, and is a wild success. But how long has she been writing?
And what did she start in? I mean, her kind of when she had a radical conversion and began writing in the Christian publishing industry for the Christian market, it was historical fiction, and some of it was just historical fiction, and some of it was historical biblical fiction. But that's all kind of in the same thing there. And she established herself and wild acclaim because she did that so well. And now she could write a haiku
she could
or
write
whatever
a book on knitting, and we would buy it. Why, right?
And the reason is because she has established herself as an excellent writer. So she writes in two kind of different genres, in the historical / biblical fiction and contemporary. And she does them both brilliantly. But even then, she's mentioned that it was a little bit of when she said to her agent, I want to step away from what's making all the money and all the things. They were kind of like, why don't we just stick with that? What you've established. But it was kind of important to her to serve the calling in her, but she did it after establishing herself.
Right.
So
back to James Scott Bell. He established himself as this great author of courtroom dramas. But if you look at some of his writing, his other books, he has a series about Romeo. It's Romeo's Way, Romeo's War, Romeo's Fight. Totally different characters, totally different. I mean, this is like a guy who is a cage fighter. So that's so far removed from the courtroom. And he has some novellas about nuns, a crime-fighting nun. And he has a vampire as a person who kind of crime fights in LA, an attorney who's a vampire.
That's awesome.
So you've got, here's James Scott Bell, who established himself in one and now can write, the haiku, and he would be fine. But he first established himself in a certain lane.
And the funny thing is it's not really the genre that he established. I mean, any of these writers, what they become known for is not just writing a good courtroom drama or a biblical fiction or historical fiction or whatever. It's that they write compelling stories with compelling, complex characters. That's what they become. That's if you can do that, then people will follow you anywhere, because they know that your stories and your characters are going to stand up to whatever setting, whatever genre it is. That's where you get people who will follow you, from steampunk to Amish quilt mysteries to the courtroom to
the nuns, to the vampires.
To the vampires, because of the power of your characters and the power of your story.
And because he has written so much, we authors read his books on writing, because we know he is a success, and this is how he did it. And he's very willing to share that knowledge through the books that he's written about the craft of writing.
Yeah.
So yes, can you write both fiction and nonfiction? The short answer is yes. The long answer is depends. Depends on a lot of things.
And you were asking me how Cynthia Ruchti did it. My agent, who is first and foremost, she is a writer. She even teaches workshops on this. She teaches all sorts of writing subjects, but she talks about the musicality of writing, and writing for the ear, and that's kind of her trademark. So whether she's writing a recipe for scones or writing, fiction or nonfiction, it doesn't matter. The beauty of her words and the way that she writes and touches you emotionally through writing for your ear and your heart, it doesn't matter what she writes. That's how she established her excellent kind of thing that we would follow anywhere. But it all comes down to that one thing that you do really excellently. And if you do it excellently, then the readers that you've established will follow you. Yeah.
All right. Well, you have been listening to The Art of Semi-Fiction. I am Jane Daly.
And I am Robynne Miller, and we have been exploring every corner of the written word.
So thank you for listening. Please subscribe, like, and leave us a review.
We would appreciate it. Thanks for listening. Bye.